The biggest topic today that I have found has been the Unity shit that's going on. It's a software platform. It's for game developers to use. In fact, chances are pretty good that at least one game that you own has been developed on Unity. Like, for example, Hearthstone, the World of Warcraft card game, Cult of the Lamb, Among Us, one of the most popular games out there, is built on a Unity engine. Unity has decided that they are going to start charging developers on a per install basis for their engine. It's a 20-cent fee per install for small developers. Unity personal subscribers is what they call them. Just to give you some figures, their games brought in $200,000 in the past year, and they have 200,000 lifetime installs to date.
That's a lot of nuts!
I had heard somewhere that they might be revising that so it's not every time you install a game. So, for example, if you install, uninstall, reinstall Among Us across, say, multiple devices, they still might only be charged the one time. So it is better, but it's still an extra 20-cent charge.
Yeah. And I think it wasn't supposed to kick in until you've had so many installs total as well. I'm not sure how they're going to track this, but
I have some data on that. And yeah, Chris, I know you're fine with Blizzard getting fucked over for once, but here's the thing though. Large developers like Blizzard only get charged 1 cent fee per install for large development. These are Unity Enterprise clients. Their games brought in $1 million last year and have lifetime sales of $1 million or more.
That I'm actually kind of a little more okay with, just on the account of per volume. If we're looking at it purely from a business standpoint, you would figure you'd want to have some sort of kind of discount to that rate for just the sheer volume of players you have in a game. I still don't like the idea, but looking at it from just the pure kind of money sense, it makes sense.
I do have the figures for what is going to be counted as an install and what is not going to be counted as an install. Quote, no demos, trials, or game bundles and giveaways like Humble Bundle, they will not count as installs. However, if it's early access, beta, or demo of a full game, then yes, it will result in a runtime fee.
Wait, runtime fee. So yeah, that also makes it sound like just for playing the game.
Well, that's what they're calling it. It's a runtime fee.
So I wonder if that's going to be turned into a fee based on the amount of playtime a player has the game active.
No, my understanding is it's every time the game is physically installed, and I have more to go in on this. This is a really deep rabbit hole, and I ran down the whole thing. So how about games included in streaming services, right? Because they're not really installed on an end user device, so they shouldn't count, right? Subscription services like Game Pass do count as an install.
That's what it sounds like they're trying to go after, ultimately.
Yeah. What they're really after is they're trying to go after the Game Passes. They're trying to go after the mobile apps, because the mobile apps are almost all built on Unity engine. Because of all the microtransactions and crap, those things make a ton of money.
Well, I think Genshin Impact is Unity, and like we all know how much that money, how much that brings in. Well,
yeah, Genshin Impact is one of the ones that is specifically named.
Pokemon Go as well.
Yeah,
Pokemon Go is also.
Really surprised that some of the bigger boys aren't freaking out about this.
That's the thing. The bigger boys don't care, because it's like, okay, yeah, what's $1 million to Blizzard? But
yeah, but again, that also kind of goes back to what I was saying with sort of the bulk install discount rate.
Yeah, the big boys are only getting charged 1 cent per install. They don't. I mean, it's 1 cent. It's nothing.
Yeah, and we'll put out a new skin and charge you $1 for it. That'll cover like everything.
I mean, that's literally how they'll make their money back. Is they'll be like, oh, look, they're charging us 1 cent per install. No problem. Hey, players, we've just released this new, super weapon. You can buy it for the low price of, $10.
It's hard to see how they justify doing this, because obviously they already have a financing model, licensing, whatever else, which is how they make their money. It just seems like they're getting greedy, and the result is just going to be that people aren't going to use Unity anymore.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. And like Chris Static says, yeah, Tencent has a ton of Unity games, and that's what they're aiming at. They're aiming at the 10 cents. They're aiming at all the mobile guys who have tons and tons of mobile games that are built on Unity that are basic crap. engines just designed to suck your wallet dry. I'm no stranger to this. Okay, I mean, I played the Fist of the North Star gacha game. I've wasted a lot of money on it, unfortunately. But Kenshiro and company whooping people's asses, I want to play that. And I don't know if it is actually built on Unity or not, or if it's its own proprietary engine or not.
That's the other thing I found when I was researching it. They're trying to change the text of their agreements, which gave me flashbacks to, the OGL.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking that it reminds me of the OGL stuff.
Yeah, because they're trying to change it so that previously the text in the agreements was that you could continue using an older version that you developed for in perpetuity without having to pay anything extra. Now they've gone back and they've changed all that text and removed text. So now if you develop even under previous versions, you supposedly get caught under this agreement.
Reasoning, the reasoning feels similar too, because we all speculated that Wizard of the Coast wanted to go after Paizo and people like that, but meanwhile they were just screwing us little guys, and this feels like a very similar situation.
It does. Yeah. And see, I figured gamers would catch on to this much faster than everybody else.
Did you happen to hear the other story that came out around this?
Around it? Possibly.
Okay, so there was recently a death threat that happened at the Unity offices.
I heard that.
Well, as a result of this, they shut down a couple of the offices. Coincidentally, on a day in which they were going to have a town hall meeting to sit and discuss this with the employees. So, the CEO gets the skirt out of it yet again.
Oh yeah. And okay, so talking about their how they're going to track this. Okay, their quote is, "We leverage our own proprietary data model, so you can appreciate that we won't go into a lot of detail, but we believe it gives an accurate determination of the number of times the runtime is distributed for a given project."
Yeah, you owe us $1 million. How do we know? Trust me, bro.
Yeah, algorithm told us. Oh, okay.
And see, this is the thing. You only know how many times the runtime was distributed. That's not the same thing as how many times it was installed.
Kind of sounds like more like the tracking sales rather than actual installs. So if I buy a game on Steam and it happens to be Unity, it's like, well, that's an install. It's like, no, I haven't even installed it. I've never played this game. I have like so many games on Steam that I've probably never even installed. So yeah.
I have a ton of games on Steam, and then I haven't even played half of them because I'm just damn busy.
I mean, the only sort of the only silver lining for me, I feel, is that like half my Steam library seems to come from charity websites like Humble Bundle. So that's about the only way it's getting kind of skirted around that.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, that does kind of encourage me to want to buy more stuff from Humble Bundle, because A, it saves you money, and B, it will avoid the Unity screwing.
Because even then, that it's not so much for you and me. Although let's be honest, a lot of these developers will probably pass that on as like a increase of like 50 cents or $1 for the game. It's also like I feel better because I know at least like I'm kind of helping skirt around that, even though we're the different storefronts are taking different percentages. And then they have to give some charity. It's kind of a conundrum. Not
to mention, there's the GOG, Good Old Gaming. They distribute DRM free copies. So how is this going to impact the DRM free copies? And Chris Static, you're probably right. Game Pass prices will probably increase because of this as an excuse.
There was something about thresholds, but I can't remember how many it was.
Yeah, this story, like I said, it's bigger than I originally anticipated. Some of my friends who I didn't even realize were in on this were actually yelling at me about it yesterday. They were like, "Hey, T-shirt, have you heard that crazy story about Unity?" And I'm like, "You heard about this crazy story about Unity?" But yeah, the developers for Among Us, Going Under, Cult of the Lamb, Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, Slay the Spire, Wizard with a Gun, Floppy Knights have all publicly said that they are going to switch engines if these changes go through. They had some really interesting ways of showing their displeasure, if I might show a bit. Here's a bit of Slay the Spire right here. I don't own this game. Yeah, as you can see here, Megacrit, which is behind Slay the Spire, says, "The Megacrit team has been hard at work these past 2+ years on a new game. But unlike with Slay the Spire, the engine we have been developing it in is Unity. The retroactive pricing structure of runtime fees is not only harmful in a myriad of ways to developers, especially indies, it is also a violation of trust." We believe Unity is fully aware of this, seeing as they have gone so far as to remove their TOS from GitHub. Yeah, that's the other thing. They removed their terms of service from GitHub. Despite the immense amount of time and effort our team has already poured into development on our new title, we will be migrating to a new game engine unless the changes are completely reverted and TOS protections are put in place. We have never made a public statement before. That is how badly you fucked up.
This is definitely like the OGL situation, but for video games. Like, all the same things are happening.
Yes, exactly.
Which makes me think, like, how can you watch what Wizards did and be like, you know what, I'm gonna do the same thing a year later?
Pretty much. This one is pretty funny. This is from Face Punch Studio. Unity can get fucked. Face Punch Studios.
Based.
Let's see, what else would we have here? Oh, okay, this is from Inner Sloth. These are the guys who did Among Us. We use Unity to make our games. This would harm not only us, but fellow game studios of all budgets and sizes. If this goes through, we'd delay content and features our players actually want to port our game elsewhere, as others are also considering. But many developers won't have the time or means to do the same. Stop it! What the fuck? One last one. Let me see here. Hey gamers! Today, Unity, the engine we use to make our games, announced that they'll soon be taking a fee from developers for every copy of the game installed over a certain threshold, regardless of how that copy was obtained. Guess who has a somewhat highly anticipated game coming to Xbox Game Pass in 2024? That's right, it's us and a lot of other developers. That means Another Crab's Treasure will be free to install for the 25 million Game Pass subscribers. If a fraction of those users download our game, Unity could take a fee that puts an enormous dent in our income and threatens the sustainability of our business. And that's before we even think about sales on other platforms or pirated installs of our game, or even multiple installs by the same user. This decision puts us and countless other studios in a position where we might not be able to justify using Unity for our future titles. If these changes aren't rolled back, we'll be heavily considering abandoning our wealth of Unity expertise we've accumulated over the years and starting from scratch in a new engine, which is really something we'd rather not do. On behalf of the dev community, we're calling on Unity to reverse the latest in a string of short-sighted decisions that seem to prioritize shareholders over their product's actual users. I fucking hate it here. Aggro Crab.
Just like with the Wizards of the Coast fiasco, even if they reverse it, all the trust has already been damaged.
Mm-hmm. And I have a fee breakdown for this as well. So according to this, how is the Unity runtime fee calculated? It's if a game or app meets the minimum threshold for eligibility, the Unity runtime fee will be calculated based on the applicable rate, depending on the number of installs, the country of installs, and the user's Unity plan, multiplied by the number of eligible installs. For example, let's look at a hypothetical game made by a team using Unity Pro with the following revenue and install numbers. Unity Pro would be used by like a big company like Blizzard. Revenue for last 12 months, 2 million USD. Lifetime installs, 5 million. The Unity runtime fee will apply to this game as it surpasses the $1 million revenue and 1 million lifetime install thresholds for Unity Pro. Let's look at the game's installs from the last month. Prior month installs, standard fee countries, 200K. Prior month installs, emerging market fee countries, 100K. So the fee for install activity is 23.5K USD, calculated as follows. Blah, 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 blah. I don't do math. You can
It
read
doesn't take much to read between the lines that it's obviously they just want to give a break to China because China has like 500 million installs of games with the Unity engine.
Imagine that. I mean, they wouldn't want to, have any bad blood with Tencent Corporation,
Oh,
right?
no, of course not.
Yeah, and like I said, Blizzard, which also kowtows to China pretty heavily. Like I said, they built their Hearthstone game on.
Until they pissed off the Chinese market and they started like smashing the Chinese statues. The Chinese statues.
Yeah.
I think it's important to point out that that was revenue, not profit. So that's turnover from the game, not what they take home in useful money. So that's being a bit deliberately misleading.
Yeah, Mr. Max has a good comment. I believe he used to work for what was it, Ubisoft? So
Mhm.
he would know.
Now, I mean, it's easy just to sit there and hate on Unity, but there is actually a reason for why they did this. According to what I've been reading, Unity is $2.6 billion is Unity's lifetime accumulated deficit over 19 years of operations, which they got by combining a 2.2 billion lifetime debt of its last annual report with the 447 million in net losses it reported for the first 2 quarters of its current fiscal year, and it's doubled in pretty short order. So Unity has never had a profitable quarter in its history. It has posted modest operating profits in the past 3 quarters for the first time ever.
Well, that's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was purely like a profit-based move in order to, try to bring up their losses and keep their company kind of liquid. But it's kind of telling because their CEO is John Ricciello, I think is his name.
Are we sure they didn't hire a Williams?
Well, no, he didn't hire Williams, but this guy used to work at EA. This is the same guy at EA who suggested that it was a really good idea to do things like get a player invested in playing a game like a Call of Duty type game, and then whenever the player runs out of ammunition in the battlefield, to charge them $1 to reload their magazine.
That's not evil enough. It needs to reload with a random amount of ammo, like a loot box each time you reload.
Ooh, actually, I think he was behind some of the development of loot boxes, which are illegal now in most countries.
I see this happen a lot. Like a company that's doing reasonably well, has a good reputation. They hire some like new CEO that's like from some awful company, and then they just start putting the same weird draconic shit in that. And yeah, that happened with Etsy. Like I don't know, all these places. Wizards, Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah. Chris backs me up. 100% true. He wanted to sell ammo for real money.
But this is an archly capitalist ideology, which is proving equally ruinous for a big company. That's the trouble with putting pure profit and serving the shareholders over everything else. You end up cannibalizing your own audience and destroying any long-term survivability for your company because you forget what got you there in the first place.
I mean, it seems like it's really more corporatism than just pure capitalism.
Well,
where it's not
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
It's worth noting, though, that this same CEO did sell off some of his stock just before this runtime fee announcement came out.
As did a bunch of other people in the company.
I don't know. Now, what kind of scares me about this? Obviously, Unity is a really big engine. There's a lot of people who use it, but it's not the only one out there. A lot of companies have proprietary engines. CD Projekt Red has its Red engine. Bethesda has been, kind of churning along on their same, what the hell's its engine called?
Creation engine.
Creation engine, yeah. A lot of these companies are using their own engines. I think Baldur's Gate 3 actually has its own engine as well. But like Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red already announced that they're switching over to Unreal Engine for their next games. And from now on, they're going to start using Unreal because there's a lot more developers who know how to use it and it's easier to work with than their Red engine, right? So what happens if Unreal takes a look at Unity and says, that's kind of a good idea. Maybe we should do that too. I have some idea how this is going to affect our games in the future. I mean, for one thing, it's going to cause delays as some of these companies are going to have to learn how to build their games using whole new engines or completely develop new ones from the ground up, which ultimately is better for them. But for us, the end user, it means delays. It might also mean increased costs because I'm pretty sure building your own engine from the ground up costs a hell of a lot more than just sourcing somebody else's engine to use to create your game.
But wait! There's more!
So everybody out there in YouTube land, it's almost 7 o'clock in the morning on Monday, but I figured it was worth mentioning. We do have kind of a little bit of a closure to this Unity story. Yesterday, at about 6:13 p.m., Unity posted up on Twitter, and they said,
"We have heard you. We apologize for the confusion and angst the runtime fee policy we announced on Tuesday caused. We are listening, talking to our team members, community, customers, and partners, and we'll be making changes to the policy. We will share an update in a couple of days. Thank you for your honest and critical feedback.
So evidently the backlash was a real thing. Kind of as predicted, Unity walked all this back. Oh well, we told you so.
Called it.